In this lesson, we will begin to evaluate a new generation of Black leaders in the post Reconstruction era, starting with Booker T. Washington, who had emerged by the late 1800s as the most influential leader of Black Americans since Frederick Douglass. Booker T. Washington advocated a program of Black self reliance, emphasizing that Black Americans needed the skills to provide for themselves and slowly climb out of poverty. He advised his people to pursue education, especially industrial education and job training. He believed that if Black people learned to do something useful and worked hard at it, others would see their value and begin to accept them as equal. Washington's ideas have been called a gospel of work and money. He believed that people would be valued by what they produced, and that if Black Americans could produce quality work, they would cease to be ostracized. In order to provide education to people so that they could get jobs and prove their value, Washington founded a school in his home state of Alabama called the Tuskegee Institute. Students at Tuskegee learned practical and industrial skills that would help them provide for their families. Now called the Tuskegee University, the school still serves Black students today, but the curriculum has grown beyond industrial education. Booker T. Washington also knew that Black people needed training to work in northern factories. By the early 1900s, large numbers of Black Americans were leaving the Deep South and heading for big northern cities like Philadelphia, Chicago, and Detroit. These northern cities had a lot of factories and were hiring new workers. Washington created the National Urban League, which helped to provide job training for Black migrants looking for work in factories. Booker T. Washington's program undoubtedly helped many people, but some criticized Washington. They said he was demanding change from Black people, but not from the country. Washington didn't have much to say about the ongoing racial violence, for example, or the white supremacist state governments trying to keep Black citizens from voting. Booker T. Washington's program might be called a conservative one because it aimed to leave America's racial power structure more or less the same. Subsequent leaders would insist that the country make more radical changes in order to give Black Americans a real chance to compete.